Shalom. Call Haloyim Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rachak Wadash Shanya Kabad Ekatwala Requab Sequanium Nawa Wash Halayakim Nawa. That's the belongings to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom Wabarakim Labakarium. Shaliyah Sharala. That is peace and blessings to the elect of Israel. And as always, may a double portion of the Holy Spirit be put upon all the brothers that are still offering their bodies as a living sacrifice, pushing out this word in truth and in sincerity. So I'm going to jump right into it. This is going to be another reason why the Hebrew is so important. And I found this website just searching Google. I typed in the word church and into a blue letter, and it didn't pop up at all in the Old Testament. So I went to Google and just typed in, where is the word church in the Old Testament? Just wanted to make sure blue letter was actually acting right. Sometimes it messes up every now and then. And of course, it's not there. The English word church, that is, the English word church is not in the Old Testament. However, just like this article is entitled, it says finding the church, quote unquote church, in the Old Testament. There actually still is a church in the Old Testament. And once you go into the Hebrew, it's very obvious to determine who that actual church is referring to, or what nation of people that church is referring to. And that's important to know because it helps us to understand all throughout the scriptures, even in the New Testament, especially in the book of Revelation concerning salvation, who the churches are referring to as well. So it's very important to understand this. One more reason why the Hebrew is important to go into. So without further ado, don't want to make this intro too long because I'm going to read majority of this article, and just hang in there and stick with me. This is kind of a study session right now because I just came across all of this. Very interesting, but it's so easy to understand and it makes so much sense. So we're going to read all of this, and then we'll grab the passages that are outlined below in this article, go into the Hebrew, and then we'll tie it all together in the book of Revelation. So it says, what is a church? When the word church comes to mind, many think in terms of a building where believers in Yahushai assemble. And of course, filter through the bones. Filter through the bones. That's certainly part of the dictionary definition of the word church. It's a part of the dictionary definition, but it's not the complete definition. The important part of the definition is that it's the whole body of believers in Yahushai. We know it's referring to the Israelites. Jump the gun. In the King James Version Bible, the English word church appears in the New Testament, but not in the Old Testament. This simple word church has an interesting background and far-reaching meaning. The focus here is how the word church was used prior to the New Testament. And that's what we're digging into. That's why we're going into the Hebrew. How was the word church used prior to the New Testament? So it says Septuagint. One unique source that will help us in our quest is a Greek translation of the Old Testament called the Septuagint. The Septuagint was written in the 3rd century BC in Alexandria, Egypt, by a group of 72 scholars. It was widely used among Hellenistic Jews. Wink, wink, hint, hint. Many Jews spread throughout the Roman Empire were beginning to lose their Hebrew language, which is true. The process of translating the Hebrew to Greek also gave many non-Jews a glimpse of Judaism, or the Israelite nationality, our culture. It has also been used to translate the Old Testament into many languages. The Septuagint is important because it provides a direct link between the Greek of the New Testament and the Hebrew of the Old Testament. Many early Christians spoke and read Greek. They relied on the Greek Septuagint translation of most of their understanding of the Old Testament. So here we go. Now we're going to get into it. In the English New Testament, the word church is translated as the Greek word ecclesia. It is from this word we get the English word ecclesiastical. This word is formed from the Greek words ek, meaning out of or away from, and kaleo, meaning to call. So ecclesia means the called out assembly. So the Greek word for church is ecclesia, which means the called out assembly or just a calling out. Okay? First point to remember. And of course, God is the one doing the calling out, which is true, calling us out of the world and into the kingdom of the Most High. They got it partly right. So it's no surprise that the word ecclesia is also translated as the words assembly and congregation. That's the second thing to remember. The Greek word ecclesia is also where you get the translation or the words assembly and congregation when you go back to the Old Testament. Keep those 2 points in mind so far. Now, let's quickly read this, ecclesia, going into that word. Now, this is where it gets interesting. It says, in the Septuagint, the word ecclesia is used many times to translate the Hebrew word kahal, or kahal. But they actually do have it right. Quahal is how it's pronounced in the Paleo. As we recall, the Septuagint is using Greek to translate the Old Testament. The same Greek as used in the New Testament. So what we end up with is an entire Bible written in Greek. Now the Hebrew word quahal is translated into English as multitude, company, congregation, and assembly. As we can see, 2 of the 4 definitions of quahal are identical to those of the Greek word ecclesia. Now consider the following Old Testament passages, paying special attention to how the words multitude, company, congregation, and assembly are used. Whew. Okay, so that was a lot. We read a lot and we got a lot of information here. So what did we understand so far? We understand that the Septuagint is basically the Greek translation of the Bible. Specifically for us right now, we're referring to the Old Testament. So the Greek translation of the Old Testament. So where you see the English words, specifically what we're going to go into are congregation and assembly. Where you see the English words congregation and assembly, you get the Hebrew word quahal. The Greek translation, or the Septuagint, translates those 2 English words as ecclesia, which means church in the Greek. So the English has congregation and assembly. In the Greek, for those 2 words, you get the Greek word ecclesia, which is how you say church. This lets us understand who the church has always been referring to in the Old Testament, which allows us to understand more of the New Testament. Specifically also the letters that were written to these various nations. When you read 1 Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians, 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, it says to the church in these areas. We know that's referring to Israelites, as we're going to go into. So I hope all this has been easy to comprehend so far. Now what we're going to do, and I hope you all are digesting this, is we're going to go into a little bit of the Hebrew now, which we know is going to say quahal. So Genesis 48 verse 4 is the first verse that they bring up as an example. So I already have it queued up. Genesis 48 and verse 4. Now remember, this is when Jacob, he's talking to Joseph right now, and he's recalling a time that an angel came to him and told him that he was going to be blessed, right? So Genesis 48, I'll start at verse 3. It says, "And Jacob said unto Joseph, The Most High, or God Almighty, appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, Behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a multitude of people." A multitude, that's the word, of people, "and will give this land to thy seed after thee for an everlasting possession." Now we go into the Hebrew, and we look up that word multitude, and we see the Hebrew word quahal. Quahal. Now remember, it's not going to, it may or it may not, but it doesn't say it. It doesn't say church right here as one of the definitions, but remember, in the Septuagint, this word was translated to ecclesia, which is how you say church in the Greek. In the Hebrew, we have quahal. Now, let's also see Numbers 14, verse 5. I haven't even looked this up. We're just studying right now. You're studying with me. We're studying together. Oh, no. It's hard to see. Exodus 16, verse 3. Let's look up that. Let's see what that says. Exodus 16, verse 3. "And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to the Most High we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and we did eat bread to the full, for ye have brought us forth unto this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Man, let's get a little context. Verse 1 says, "And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, in the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt." So our people were complaining after the Lord miraculously delivered us out of Egypt. "And the whole congregation," verse 2, "of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness." And we already read verse 3, saying, "You brought us out here just to kill us?" But they refer to themselves, it says. I'm going to read verse 3 one more time. "And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to the Most High, would to God, we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger," referring to themselves, Israel, as the assembly. Just like Jacob, remember, Jacob's name was later changed to Israel, and he was blessed, or he was told that he would be blessed with being a multitude of nations, right? A great company. So now we see the word assembly right here. Let's look up that word. To kill the whole assembly. That word assembly, once again, quahal in the Greek. In the Septuagint, that would be ecclesia. Okay. So we see in Genesis 48, verse 4, we seen the word multitude, quahal in the Hebrew, ecclesia in the Greek. Exodus 16 and 3, we seen the word assembly this time, also quahal in the Hebrew and ecclesia in the Greek. Let's get one more. Numbers 14, verse 5. We'll get one more. Numbers 14, verse 5. And this is straightforward. It says, "Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel." And you can just get that contextual, that the assembly right here is referring to Israel, obviously, because it says it. But more importantly, we go into the Hebrew, once again, just for edification purposes and for truth's sake. Shout out our channel, GMS Truth Sent 18. Kohal. We see Kohal in the Hebrew once again. So boom. This is all important because now we understand that the word church has always been referring to the nation of Israel. So check this out. When we read, now let's bring this all together. Why is this important? Are we just, gathering random information just to say that we can point these things out and not use it? No. We're pointing these things out for the purpose of understanding certain verses like this. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, we'll start reading at verse 1. Remember, these were letters written to these various, to certain people, I'll say, that were in these specific nations. 1 Corinthians 1, verse 1. Paul, called to be an apostle of Yahushua, through the will of God, and Sosthenes, our brother, unto the church of God, which is at Corinth. To them that are sanctified in Yahushua, called to be saints. In verse 2, we have two words that are very important. One, it says called to be, it says called to be saints. We already well understand that the saints are the Israelites. But we also have this word church. Unto the church of God, which is at Corinth. Now, if you understand, I didn't want to jump the gun again and give it away. A little bit of our history. Our people were scattered amongst the heathen. We were scattered amongst these other nations. So these were letters written to our people scattered amongst these various different nations, one of them being Corinth. So unto the church of God, which is at Corinth, or basically unto the Israelites of God, which are at Corinth. And I've never even done this, but let's look up that word church. Boom. We looked up the word church and we have ecclesia right there. In the Hebrew, that would be what? Kohal. In the English, we can also replace it with assembly, or we can replace it with, what was the other word? Multitude. So church we have right here, ecclesia, which was always referring to the nation of Israel. The word church was always referring to the nation of Israel. Assembly, congregation. These words in the English in the Old Testament were always referring to the nation of Israel. So this letter right here, unto the church of God at Corinth, was addressed. This was a letter, and it was addressed to the Israelites that were scattered in Corinth. It's the same thing in the second chapter, obviously. 2 Corinthians 1, verse 1, once again, Paul, an apostle of Yahushua, by the will of God, and Timothy, our brother, unto the church of God, which is at Corinth. Beautiful. We jump over now to the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 1. Paul and Silvanus and Timotheus unto the church of the Thessalonians. Our people were scattered amongst the Thessalonians. Unto the church, aka the Israelites of the Thessalonians, which is in the Most High, the Father, and in the Lord Yahushua. Grace be unto you and peace from our God, our Father, and the Lord Yahweh Shai. Let's get into it. Church, the word church, ecclesia. Dang. B, the assembly of the Israelites. That's all they should have here. It shouldn't say anything else. It shouldn't say a gathering of citizens called out. It shouldn't say an assembly of people convened. No, it should just say right there, picking out the bones. But we're able to pick out the bones because we understand the Hebrew. Because we went into our words. The assembly of the Israelites, church, Qahal. Also, making one last point here. When you type in the word church and you go to the book of Revelation, these seven churches right here. The church of Ephesus, Revelation 2:1. The church of Smyrna, 2:8. The church of Pergamos, 2:12. The church of Thyatira, 2:18. The church of Sardis, 3:1. The church of Philadelphia, 3:7. The church of Laodiceans, 3:14, were all Israelites. And this isn't us just saying certain things because of emotions. Now we have actual an understanding of this because we've gone into our words. Because we've gone into our words, we were able to get the actual Bible definition. Not just the word definition, but we were able to get the biblical definition of how the Bible uses the word church. So this letter was written to the Israelites that were in these specific churches at Pergamos, at Thyatira, at Sardis, at Philadelphia. Because they were scattered. Our people were scattered amongst these nations. We were a large multitude. We'll tie it all in there because why not? Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Our people were scattered amongst all of these different nations. We were scattered amongst all these nations. And of course, Yahweh Shai was sent down to die on the cross so that our people scattered amongst these nations would hear the word, would hear about the resurrection of Yahweh Shai and believe on him and come back to the Heavenly Father by having faith in Yahweh Shai. Therefore, I'll use the word, therefore guaranteeing their salvation. Because that's how the story is written. Now, in these times, obviously, we don't know who the elect are, but we do know that many have been called. And is that not the definition of church? To call out? Many have been called, but it says few are chosen. And through our faith, we're hoping and praying that we are amongst that chosen number. Just wanted to tie it all in. Just wanted to tie all of this into now that great multitude because we were scattered amongst these different nations. But with that being said, that was it. We read the article. We have an understanding now of who the church was. We know the biblical definition. And I pray that this video was edifying to the elect, to the church. Call Halayim Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Ba'ashem Rachakudash. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect. Shalom.